Welcome to More Than Our Story, where we strive to inspire by sharing stories from incredible people. I'm Daniel Height, and today I'm joined by Megan Eckert. Megan is a special education teacher, a high school track and cross-country coach, and also a multiple world record holding ultra runner. Megan, I'm thrilled you made the time to join today.
Thank you so much.
So, by your own admission, you did not enjoy running during your school years. You only reluctantly took it up again as an adult. What was your motivation to start again?
So I was living a very unhealthy lifestyle, something that probably spent more time late nights and bars and things that I shouldn't be doing all the time. And it kind of hit a point where, like, for me, I realized that I needed to make a change. And so I just picked up running. That was the easiest thing. At the time, there was a nice trail behind the house I was living at. It was a paved trail, but I would go and do, I think it started with like a mile, and most of it was walking at the time. And then it slowly increased to the point where I was doing 2 miles like every other day.
So, what was keeping you motivated to keep pushing that limit to find out what you're capable of?
It started simply as a health thing, and then it became when I realized like I could run a mile, and then I realized I could do two. I started just wondering like how far the body could go, because I started seeing like these health benefits too. I started feeling better. I started thinking clearer. And it just, I just started wondering like what's the human body capable of.
So, I read that you attribute part of your inspiration to truly like opening the tap, if you will, to your ultra running career was the book Marshall Ulrich's 2011 Running on Empty. What
Yeah.
was it about that book that spoke to you?
The story is just incredible. And the idea that somebody can go and one day decide to run across the country like that and just pick up and say, I'm going to run 3,100 miles from San Francisco to New York. I don't know. It's just a testament to like what we're capable of. And it just, I read it in 2005 and didn't actually start running until 2016. So that's like a huge gap. But that book has always been in the back of my mind. That people can do stuff like this, that they can run continuously, that they can run across the country, they can do ultras, they can run trails, they can. There's all this potential to be active. So it was kind of already in the back of my head.
So with running so often and so long and so continuously as you do, how is it that you are able to stay healthy and so apparently free of injuries?
So I think there's a multi-dimensional approach to running that I've learned. So when I first started running, it was just all about the running. It was all about getting out and doing the miles. And now I've realized, and it may be a part of age too, that there's some other aspects to running that aren't running. Like I love the mountains so much. I started trying to run in the mountains, started trying to do 50Ks, 50 milers, hundreds in the mountains. And I kept ending up with these odd pains and aches here and there. And I realized, oh, I need to be doing strength training right after going to PT multiple times. It was like I should be strength training. So I started lifting weights. I started changing my diet. I'm working with a wonderful nutritionist now to try to tune in my diet a little bit more. I may not take a full rest day all the time because I do believe in movement as medicine. But like I take a slower day out there, I might go on a hike instead of going on a run. But so there's all these other aspects other than just running that I think make a stronger runner, keep you healthy, keep you moving.
So you just touched on one of them. the mental aspect, particularly for like multiple day events. How do you occupy your mind? Do you follow more the just clear it approach, or do you focus on the moment, or is it more situational where
I gotta be honest, I really don't have a game plan. I was as an adult, I was diagnosed as ADD, which is now all encompassing like ADHD. And that was in my early 20s, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't finish college. It actually took me 6 years to get my bachelor's because I kept doing other things. And then I would go back for a semester and then I would do something else. And so it took me forever to figure out, oh, I just can't focus, that I would pass a class and then I would fail another or whatever it was. And it was based on interest partially. But I find that that is actually somewhat beneficial in this ultra running. And whoever thought that, but it's somewhat beneficial because it's the only time I'm quiet. I can narrow into that, like I'm running for this long distance. There's nothing else going on. I can't really think of anything other than like what I'm going to eat next, who I'm going to see, like when I'm going to see my crew again. So it becomes like this really tunnel vision sort of thing that I don't tend to experience anyplace else but in ultra running for the most part.
so you touched on something right there. The crew. Something I hear consistently from ultra runners is their love of the communal aspect of the sport. Um, why do you think the community is so strong and supportive in ultra running? And do you have a personal experience you'd maybe like to share about that?
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned that. It's not only the crew, but you touched on the community, right? It's everyone involved. It's the race directors, the volunteers, the runners you're running with, your crew. Um, there's my first experience for ultra running wasn't even running a race. It was volunteering at an ultra. And I was set at an aid station for 16 hours for this 100K. And we made PB&Js and filled water bottles. And, if you've ever tried to fill a hydration vest for the first time and you tried to undo that bladder and refill it, it's really hard if you've had zero experience. So these runners were just so patient with myself trying to figure out how to fill this hydration bladder. And there was just this instant, like, this is ultra running. It's okay. The course was even long, and they were okay with the course being long. They came through, and they would be like, "Oh yeah, the course is a little long this year. That's okay. We're fine with it. Like we're ultra." And like in a marathon, you're like, okay, it's 26.2. You can understand 26.3, but anything more is just not okay. And in an ultra, I mean, these runners were going to run like 5 miles more than 100K. So it was absolutely crazy. The positivity, the energy. And then once I finally got on the trail myself on the other side, like not volunteering, but running, there were there's countless experiences that I've had where the runners come together to support each other. I DNF'd a race, went back the following year to run it again. And there were some of the same runners out there, some of the same volunteers out there. And there was a group of 3 of us that finished really close together. We ran most of the last loop together, which is 20 miles. So there was just this really cool community feel to ultra running.
So on the that same line, community and support and giving back, you're a special ed teacher, which alone is an incredible role, giving back to your community. What led you towards that career?
I knew very early on that I wanted to be a special education teacher. I've had family members who have disabilities, and it was always this. Well, I was told from a very young age I was going to be a teacher because that's just my personality, I guess. And then special ed was, I don't know, I was. It was just meant to be. I have no absolute reason why I just knew it's what I wanted to do. I never really thought of anything else. I started, well, I take that back. I did start my first year in college as a pre-med major, and then quickly realized that that wasn't for me, and immediately switched to education. But most of my life, it's always been education.
And you're giving back. You're also coaching a high school track team and cross country team.
Yes. And a lot of that stems from the fact that I was so reluctant to try running beyond like my sports, which were basketball and volleyball. I was so reluctant to run in high school and so terrified of it that I want to make it more welcoming, and something that, because I wish now that I had that experience when I was younger and had been able to run track or run cross country, and I didn't. And I kind of, it's one of my regrets. So I try to encourage the high school students to at least come out and try it out. Not that they have to stay for a season, not that they have to do all the events, but just to experience running and just to experience the community.
So, how does being a professional runner change your approach to teaching or coaching high school students?
I think we, and I say we because as a team, like we're all a team. And I think we share experiences. So when I go to one of their cross country meets or I go to one of their track meets, like their successes, I feel, when they're excited about their throws, they're excited about their run, they're excited about the course or whatever, I know what that feels like. I know that feeling. And I recently this past year started sharing my own experiences through running with them. So like maybe there's a weekend where I'm going to do a 50K, and so I'll come back and I'll tell them about that 50K or tell them about that half or whatever it was that I run. And so it's a shared thing. We share back and forth. And so I would say that like their experience on the track empower me to be a better runner. And I hope that a little bit of what I share kind of motivates them.
So, what's the most important thing you try to instill in your athletes?
There's really two things. There's two things that I really want them to learn. I really want them to learn how, even though I'm the one as a coach developing a training plan for them, I want them to learn to listen to their body and to be honest with me about how they're feeling, because I think a lot of times like we're so rigid with our training plans because we have this big goal. Sometimes it's okay to be a little bit flexible. It's okay to say, hey, my body feels like this today. So I want them to learn to listen to their body. And that also coincides with the next goal, which is I want them to be lifelong athletes. Not that they have to continue to run, but just continue to move, like we talked about earlier. Have some sort of passion in their life. And it doesn't even have to be athletic wise. It could be art, it could be music, it could be anything, but I want them to find kind of their passion and be lifelong athletes or lifelong learners.
So, to shift the conversation to you now, you hold multiple world records now and have won multiple events outright. Last year, you set a world record at the Big Dog Ultra, Backyard Ultra in Tennessee. Can you share the format of a Backyard Ultra for those who may not be familiar with it?
Yeah, so, and I'm just going to say that that's a woman's best, because in backyards, they also don't distinguish between men and women. So there's the world record and then there's the woman's best. So it was a woman's best. The world record is actually 116 hours now. And I'll explain what that is. So you do 4.17 miles every hour on the top of every hour for as long as you can possibly make it. So you go out for a loop, you do that 4.117 miles, you come in, and if you come in 55 minutes, you have 5 minutes to eat, retie your shoes, change your socks, whatever you have to do, and then you go back out on that same 4.17 mile loop again. And each hour is called a yard, and at night they may switch it. So some courses in the daytime you'll do a trail loop, and then in the nighttime you'll do a cement like paved loop, or a much easier course to allow for extra sleep. But you still have to go out on the top of every hour, so your extra sleep may be 7 minutes.
What first attracted you to that format?
It was a suggestion of a friend of mine. There was a backward ultra Pagoro showdown in Arizona, which is just a few hours away from me. And a friend of mine had said, "Hey, why don't you go try this ultra out? It's a silver ticket," which a silver ticket means if you win that event, if you're the last one who's able to complete a yard, you automatically get to go to the Bigs World team. And so I said, sure, why not? And I went out there and ran it and had the best time. This is like a bare bones ultra. Speaking of the community, right? Everybody sets up 10 by 10 tent. Your 10 by 10 tent is touching another person's 10 by 10 tent. So it becomes this big like festival. And where everybody meets in this small little square area at the top of every hour, and you run with everyone because you have a whole hour. So you can run with the fastest person, the people in the middle, the people at the end. So each hour you're in this like new community of runners and sharing stories and so on. And then it becomes where you start looking as time goes on, you start looking and you go, oh no, so-and-so left. We were talking about this. Where'd they go? So it becomes like this little family almost. But
Do you
I
think you'll
absolutely
be
love it and just want it to keep going.
will you be going back this year?
Yes, I will. I have just made that decision. I had made both the 24-hour USA team, and I had made the Bigs individual team. And there's still enough time for me to get bumped off at Bigs, but I have made my decision to go back to Tennessee.
Wonderful.
Yes. So as long as nobody bumps me off, I think I have about 10 places. As long as I stay on the max list, the at-large list, I'll be in Tennessee.
So it was just this past April, you set another world record at the 6 Days of France, the 6-day World Championship. First off, congratulations.
Thank you.
Remarkable accomplishment. How do you go about preparing yourself mentally and physically for such a massive undertaking?
Yeah, so I started running to work about 2 years ago. I started commuting to work. I'm about 2.5 miles, 3-ish from my school. So I run to work in the mornings and then do my work all day. And then there's about an hour break before I have to go to the high school. So I have this multi runs in a day thing going. It's usually 2 or 3 runs a day. And a lot of times, you wake up in the morning, you don't quite want to run. Maybe it's cold that day, or it's windy, or we're getting to the season where it's hot and it's sweaty, and but I made myself always run. And at first it was real hard to get up in the morning, get up early enough to run to work and everything. It was much easier to drive. But over time, it's actually become something I enjoy in the morning, and my days don't seem right if I don't start with the run. So as in training for these multi-day events, time on your feet's most important. So I'm getting these multi-day runs. Track meets, if you've ever been to a track meet, they last, if you're lucky, they last 7 to 8 hours. And then there's those that'll last 14 hours, depending on who's timing and how the events flow and so on. So when you're running across the field and you're running from the long jump to the hurdles to the throwers, and you're constantly moving, I mean, those make for good long days and time on your feet.
So this wasn't your first 6-day event. You set the course record at 6 days in the Dome last June. What does recovery look like after a multi-day event?
So it's definitely a listening to your body situation. Last June, I was able to do walking, like 3 miles of walking or whatnot after the event pretty quickly, like within 2 or 3 days. However, I had a lot more soreness going on in my legs, a lot more swelling. This event, I had a lot of fatigue, and I think it has to do with the international travel too. And it took me a lot longer. I think it took me a full week to be able to even get out and run a few miles again. And then it's taken me about a month to really feel like I'm back to normal and back to running continuously again.
So, how did your training for the 6 day events differ from, say, preparing for a backyard ultra?
I don't vary my training too much between events. Um, I'm not a very rigid person when it comes to training. I am very more spontaneous, and I run with how I feel. So there's not too much variation there. I would say probably the biggest difference, and I think it's more of a time thing than it is a training thing, is training for the 6 day. With it being during the school year, I'm on roads a lot more. When I'm training for bigs, we have a bunch of like fall breaks going on. We have like Labor Day and we have a fall break there. So I'm able to get on the trails a bit more in the fall. But really, that's kind of the only difference. And that's just more time constraint.
So you've raced fixed distance, timed events, backyard styles. Do you have a favorite format? And what is required to really transition between those successfully?
Oh, I think out of those, my favorite format would have to be a backyard because I am able to get on trail. I am a trail runner at heart and I love the mountains. But the transition, I think they're very similar. I think the problem with all of them is time constraint, right? It's the same for all of them. It's but how you're going to use that time. I don't think there's a for me. I don't see a big difference. I know some people are stronger backyard runners, stronger 6 day, or vice versa, or multi day events. I will say, like training for a shorter timed event, um, is I'm looking at a lot more speed. I'm looking at a lot more speed work. I'm looking at a lot more, maybe not track, but just interval work and tempo runs and so on. When I'm training for a backyard or I'm training for a 6 day, I don't have to do as much of that. I can be a little bit more laid back, easy pace in my runs. I can have more of those easy days, but they're longer, right? I'm out there for a longer period of time. I'm out there for more distance. For a backyard, I'm looking at beating up my quads a little bit more, right? Doing a lot more descents. The course out at Biggs is one of the toughest in the world. So I'm going to be looking at just beating the legs up, spending a bit more trail time. So there is some variety, but it's not too significant.
So we touched on that earlier, the importance of crew and support. Running to many outsiders appears to be a solo sport, but without that crew and support, there's really only so much a runner can do. How important is it for you to know that your crew is there? And how helpful is it to know that they have your back when you set out on these races?
The first thing about the crew is they take a lot of that mental strain off of the runner. It was explained to me very early on that crews are there to do all the mental work, and the runner needs to do the physical stuff. So that takes a lot of stressors off of me as a runner. And then more importantly, I have crew that I trust with everything. My crew chief is always my husband. And I it doesn't work for everyone. It works amazing for us. It took us a little bit of time to figure out how the husband and wife structure was going to work as a crew and a runner, because of course he doesn't want to see me in pain, and I can easily say, I'm not feeling well or something. I can come up with something. And it took us a little while to kind of figure out how that was going to work. And now we're at this point in our crew runner relationship where when we get out there and we're doing a race, we're so good at separating the husband and wife aspect and just focusing on the race. And there's still times where it comes through, of course, but we've learned how to kind of work around that. And when you're doing one of these, especially a short course like 6 days, where the course was 1,129 meters, and that's not a very long course at all. And the crew's positioned on the out and back, so you see them twice every loop. So knowing that smile was going to happen, or knowing there was going to be some sort of water handoff or a high five, or and there's wonderful pictures out there of just showing the energy of the crew. They bring so much to the table, and they bring so much support.
Speaking of support, Mount to Coast sponsors you. They also have you profiled on their website as one of their athletes. What does it mean to partner with a company like that?
I am really excited about Mountain to Coast in general. We partnered last year shortly after the Dome. And what they've done is they've taken these shoes, a basic running shoe, and they said, hey, let's develop a running shoe for the ultra runner. And for me, it was game changer because I wasn't even sponsored by them, and I needed shoes to run the Dome in. And they had sent me a pair and said, hey, try these out and tell us what you think. And I didn't have a shoe that would go that distance at the time. And that shoe did. So what I've found is like wanting to do what I want to do, which is go as far as the human body possibly can before breaking down, is kind of my goal. And I know that sounds crazy, but I just want to see how far the body can possibly go. And I've found that those shoes are able to do that. And they've also been a great support in like the 6 days in France. I never would have been able to go without their support and their energy. And they're the ones who said, hey, there's this event. Why don't you check this one out? So they've been a wonderful sponsor and wonderful to work with.
So where do you see the future of ultra running?
Well, we've seen a trend with it growing. There's more and more races. We have seen there's more 200, right? There's more 300. So we're seeing the distance growing also both on trail and on road. I'm excited about the new uptick in 6-day races, right? There seems to be a new, which is a new, what I want to say, interest in them, which 6 days have dated back to the 1860s, 1870s. So this is an old race that just kind of fell by the wayside for a while. And to see it now gain popularity again is really, really exciting. I think we'll see these multi-day events really start to rise. I think the trail running events will really start to rise. There's new challenges that people are coming up with. This summer, there's a new challenge in Colorado going on. Like, there's all these really great races and ways that people are pushing their personal limits.
So what's next for you?
So I have a few pacing duties this summer that I'm really excited about. So I get to go out and be the other side, not the racer. I get to be the crew and the pacer and the support system. And then I'll also be testing my navigational skills at John Campus. So I'm really excited to see what happens in the high altitude using a map and finding my way. And the big one this summer, I'll be doing a Badwater 135. So lots of heat training. And that's another one where crew is really important because they follow you in a support vehicle. And so you run along the course. It's a road course through Death Valley up to Mount Whitney Portal. And the crew, 3 to 4 people, are in a vehicle supplying you with everything you need along the way. So about every 2 miles, I'll see them. They'll hand me off stuff. So it'll be a continuous back and forth.
So the big one is, what has running taught you?
It has taught me patience and perseverance, I think, more than anything else. It's one of those things where very few people start, me included, start and are instantly good at it. I wanted to run in the mountains, and it was hard when I was living at sea level, and but I still wanted to run in the mountains, and I would still come out and do these high altitude races. So it's one of those things where it's not an overnight deal, but if you continue to get out there, the progress happens.
Well, Megan, I just want to thank you for sharing your incredible story today. Your inspiration comes not just from their physical or mental grit, it's how you embrace and overcome all your obstacles, shattering records while still finding time to give back to your community. Thank you for being who you are.
Thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.